everybody? Welcome back to Winnemac Attack Hockey, where today we are continuing our off-season analysis series with a team that me and Matt have been waiting to do for a long time, the Chicago Blackhawks. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Dom DeBomb, and I am joined, as always, by Jake the Snake Armstrong and Matt the Brat Cleveland. Please consider hitting that subscribe button for some more NHL content and some street hockey content. Let's get into the video. All right, everybody, the Chicago Blackhawks have been giving their fans a roller coaster of a ride over the past couple of seasons, and it all starts back when they played Edmonton in the bubble, and they move on to Vegas and then end up losing. Fans are like, hey, this team that has kind of been on the down low since the Stanley Cups, finally starting to do better, and Stan Bowman and company within 24 hours is like, hey, Saad, guess what? You're traded for the second time. No big. Pleasure doing business. Crawford, hey, it's been a heck of a run, bud. We'll see you on the street. And the fans in the locker room are completely bamboozled. What in the world is going on? Management says, we're rebuilding. And then this season happens. 40 games in, the Hawks are in a playoff spot, and then it just goes downhill, crash and burn. They miss the playoffs. But then Stan Bowman is like, you know what? We're going for a Stanley Cup, and makes a bunch of moves to revamp the Chicago team. Jake, please explain what in the world happened this offseason, because there was a lot.
All right, so let's start with the first one that kind of made you think, hey, they're doing stuff. It was Caleb Jones and a third rounder going to the Blackhawks in exchange for Duncan Keith. Long-time Blackhawk there. Tears.
Nothing but tears.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good move. What about you guys?
I mean, for sure, I think, it's sad to see a guy like Duncan Keith go. One day his number's probably going to be in the Raptors. He brought a lot to the team, a lot to the locker room, a lot to the community, too. Let's not overlook that. But I think the time was right. Dunks wanted to move on to some better things, with the border thing. He wanted to go see his son and stuff. So I respect him for that. And I respect everything he's done for Chicago. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a changing of the guard for sure. He's been a guy you've been able to count on in the back end for what it seems like 50 years at this point. I mean, he's been around in Chicago forever, so it's definitely going to be different not seeing number 2 suiting up in the back end for us, but it's interesting times for sure, and good luck to him there in Edmonton.
Yeah,
and let's not forget to mention 0 salary retained by the Blackhawks.
That does help.
Yeah.
And they brought in a third, so pretty good trade.
Definitely got a good trade there. All right, Jake.
And then they continued to shake things up. They brought in Seth Jones in exchange for Adam Bachfist and an 11th overall pick, a 2022 first rounder, and a 2021 second rounder. But in addition to Seth Jones, they also got the 31st overall in this past draft. So really just it was Seth Jones for Bachfist and a first and a second. What do you guys think about that one?
Matt, I'll let you go.
Well, what I think about it is I have a Seth Jones jersey on the way, so that pretty much tells you all you need to know about him. I'm excited. I think it was definitely a move coming for a long time. It seemed like for a while that Chicago was linked to Seth Jones in a lot of rumors. Chicago's always wanted that big-time defenseman. Ever since Duncan Keith's play has declined, they've always looked for a guy to take over that mantle as the top guy. And Seth Jones' name has been thrown around for a while, and now it finally happened. And it's exciting to see. At the same point, you do lose a young guy in Adam Bachfist, which kind of sucks. Fun fact, he was born the same exact day as me, but in Sweden. Same exact day. But at the same point, you get a guy who I think is better defensively, and Seth Jones, I think he's a little bit better offensively as well, and we should see that uptick on defense going into next season.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, Bachfist was 5th on the team in assists last season.
Yeah, even despite Bachfist, his offensive abilities, I think when Caleb Jones got traded to Chicago, the rumors started hyping up, and I was just waiting for it. Matt, and I'm with you. I also have a Jones jersey on the way, so twinsies. But hey, Seth Jones, I've always loved him over there in Columbus, and I never thought that he would eventually be playing for the team I root for, and I'm very excited. I did love Bacchus as well. I thought he had a lot of potential, and I'm curious to see how he grows over there in Columbus. But I gotta say, when you bring in a top-tier guy like Seth Jones, you can't help but get excited. I mean, yeah, the contract that he signed is a bit hefty, but you're going to pay that for a top guy, and he's going to be the top guy for the next 8 years, like his extension says. So I'm excited. Jake, as a non-Blackhawks fan, what do you think of the trade overall?
I can't lie. I think Seth Jones is a huge acquisition. It does suck to lose Bacchus because I think he's going to be great in Columbus, and I think he would have been great in Chicago. Right now, Chicago seems to be wanting to go all in. So it makes sense right now to get Seth Jones.
It definitely seems like they're going all in. All right, so what was the next move that happened over the offseason?
So free agency, they lose Suter, Camp, and Hinestroza. They just simply didn't have the money.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed at the fact that Suter was an RFA and was let go for nothing. Matt, what in the world happened? Do you think there was something going on that we didn't know about? Why in the world did Bowman not qualify Suter?
I honestly could not tell you. I thought he was a dude for sure going the offseason. It was kind of like, oh, well, especially coming off the impressive rookie season that we saw. Another dude kind of like Kubalik came out of the same league and came out of nowhere, was playing well for the Blackhawks. And it was kind of like, oh, well, we got a guy to build around there, another good center. And then all of a sudden you get to the offseason and they're like, nope, we're just not going to qualify him. We're just going to let him go. And it was kind of a shock. I mean, he was definitely out of the three. I'd say he's definitely going to be missed the most. He created the biggest impact, and I think he's going to be really good in Detroit. Chicago's definitely going to be missing him, and we'll see exactly how that turns out for Bowman, whether that was a good decision or not.
I want to say he signed for around $3 million, didn't he, in Detroit?
I think it was 3.3, 3.25, something like that. He got paid pretty hefty, so.
Yeah, but I mean, for a guy that was fourth on your team in points, fourth in goals, and sixth in assists, I think 3 point something is just trade somebody like DeHaan, who's making 4.5, and bring Suter back is something that I would look into.
I mean, you would think that Suter would have been a bigger priority than he was, but unfortunately Bowman did not agree with that. But yeah, I mean, not only that, but losing a guy like David Camp, who was our best guy in the faceoff dot since Toews wasn't playing, is also going to be something huge and something to look for next season. And also with Hinestroza, who played pretty well when he came over via trade to finish out the season as well. I think all three of them guys, their presence will be missed next season.
Yeah, so, I mean, moving on, we have another huge trade. Heartbreaker if you're a Blackhawks fan. I think this guy's number is going to be in the rafters one day. You lose Mikhail Hakkarainen, and you bring in this Marc-Andre Fleury guy. So, I mean, in all seriousness, huge ad is Marc-Andre Fleury for nobody. In fact, Hakkarainen got to Vegas, and they said, hey, how's it going? Pack your bags, and they bought him out. So, essentially, Marc-Andre Fleury for nothing.
Mm-hmm. And taking on the cap. And honestly, as a Hawks fan, this is awesome. I've always loved Fleury. Always have loved Fleury. He's electrifying to watch, and I don't care for paying him $7 million. I mean, it's a one-year deal. He's coming over to the squad. The rumors were that he potentially would not even play. So the fact that he's playing, October cannot come soon enough for me. Matt, what do you think?
I'm super excited, dude. I mean, this dude is coming off of a Vezina trophy. So the fact that we're getting the Vezina trophy winner in net going into next year. And yeah, Kevin Lankinen was pretty good for us last year. And yeah, I think he'll be able to learn a lot from Marc-Andre Fleury. But you get Marc-Andre Fleury in the back end there. The defensive struggles that the Blackhawks had is definitely going to lessen a little bit with that good of a goalie there in net.
Yeah, I think you guys made some good points. And really, everybody watching knows who Marc-Andre Fleury is. And if there's any Blackhawks fans watching, I'm sure you match their excitement. But moving on, we have Nikita Zadorov traded for a third-round pick. Are you guys going to miss Zadorov at all?
I'll go. I mean, he was kind of more of a big type dude. We brought him in obviously in the Sod trade, so I think that officially means that we lost the Sod trade, unfortunately. But he was a guy who, when he first came in, he was known as a big dude, shot blocker type guy. He's going to get you a lot of hits, was going to try to kill penalties, but he really wasn't used much on the penalty kill, and what he was, it wasn't that effective. But overall, not a great guy in the lineup as well. Didn't get that many minutes compared to the other defensemen, but I mean, it's kind of a move where it's kind of under radar, not going to really hurt that much, but hopefully the additions that we made on defense makes up for it.
Yeah, I personally enjoyed it as well because we get a third-round pick for a guy that wasn't going to play a whole lot, bringing in Seth Jones and Caleb Jones, and you have some young guys that are potentially going to get some minutes every now and again. So where was he going to play? It was something that I was thinking about, so I was glad that we got something rather than just letting him walk.
Yeah, Matt also mentioned that you lost the Sod trade, but there's a bigger one there. You lost the Panarin trade. Panarin was Sod, and Sod was Zadorov, and now Zadorov is a third-round pick, so Panarin for a third. At this point...
Rough.
Yeah, at this point, odds are Panarin would have signed elsewhere anyways, but, man, you gotta think Panarin turns into a third-round pick in this short of a span is tough. But Zadorov, losing him I don't think is a big deal, especially since he was supposed to be that physical player, and he didn't really fit as well on the team as you would have hoped. But then they replaced that physical player by signing, I'm going to butcher his name, but Juha Kara, who played for the Oilers last season. I don't know if you've ever seen that guy get into a fight. The guy can scrap. Like, the only numbers that he's going to put up are 5-minute majors, but that's going to be a guy that fans are going to love.
Matt, what are your thoughts on that signing?
I mean, I'm excited, dude. I mean, I think he's a dude who definitely going to be playing some fourth-line minutes. I doubt he's going to get a major amount of minutes, but he's going to be another one of those dudes where the rest of the league's going to hate him, but like Jake said, we're going to love him. And those type players you can't help but root for.
Yeah, I think getting a fourth liner like that, like you said, it's going to be fun to watch. And the expectations for him are not going to be high when it comes to the stat sheet. So just watching him go out there and rough things up a bit is definitely going to be entertaining for sure.
Yeah, so moving on, you also added Jake McCabe, who I honestly see as a replacement for DeHaan. But all in all, pretty much not going to make your defense over the top, but another addition to that defense.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good defensive defenseman for us. Add some more depth to that defensive core because obviously, Seth Jones is going to get a lot of time. But you need someone that's going to be able to step in and back him up when he's off the ice trying to catch his breath, So I think a guy like Jake McCabe is a pretty good signing, even if he's not going to be around for the long term.
Yeah, and so that takes us to the last move. It's Tyler Johnson and a second-round pick going to Chicago in exchange for the contract of Brent Seabrook, which goes to LTIR, which probably just frees up the roster space for Chicago. But Tyler Johnson's on your team.
Matt, I know that you're a pretty big fan of this guy, or at least you were pretty excited when this trade went through. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think a big issue for the Blackhawks last year was the penalty kill. It was a problem that it seemed like every single time a team went to the power play, they were going to score. And I think with a guy like this and Tyler Johnson, his offense production has waned from his first young days there in Tampa, but he's always been known as a pretty good penalty killer, a guy who's pretty good defensively, and he can win a good amount of faceoffs. I mean, he won just over 50% of his faceoffs last year, so I think he's a guy who did have some versatility. They put him on the wing a little bit too, so I don't see that happening in Chicago, but it definitely is something you can add in. The fact that he's very versatile, and he's very a guy that you can put anywhere in the lineup, so that's always got to be a plus. The contract, not great, the amount of money that we're taking him on, but at the same point you hit off the Seabrook contract, and this is where my point comes across is this is where we're going to see, because he's pretty much going to take the Suter role, the point Suter role, on the Hawks, maybe not play as many minutes, but he's kind of going to be in the same spot of that third line centerman. And we're going to see and compare throughout the season who's end up going to be better as the season goes on. And that's really going to decide whether getting rid of Suter was a good idea or not.
I think
not to mention whether...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Dom. with a roster that young, Tyler Johnson has a winning pedigree. There's just no way around it. He spent a lot of time with winners in Tampa. And so bringing that into the Blackhawks locker room is going to be huge for those young guys.
Yeah, and I was just going to add on to that with Jonathan Toews' health being, kind of up in the air until we actually see him on the ice. I think bringing in a guy like Tyler Johnson is really going to help with Jake, that point that you just brought, that winning caliber and that experience that he brings. And Matt, I was looking at the stats at one point here recently, and his stats offensively were not bad. The reason they got worse is because his time in Tampa, his minutes went down due to the talent of that roster. So I think when he comes over to Chicago, if he gets time to play, which, who knows with, guys like Kirby Dach and Dylan Strome where he's going to fit. But if he gets time, he has shown that he can produce. But like you said, I think the faceoffs, that was something that Chicago was terrible at last season. That needs to improve, and that guy can definitely help with that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right, so that takes us through all the moves they made. Dom, if you'd like to take it away.
Yeah, so the big thing that I'm sure a lot of Chicago fans are kind of stressed about right now, with me and Matt included, is the salary cap situation. We bring in these amazing names, but looking forward, how in the world are we going to afford all of this in the future? And even right now, re-signing Brandon Hagel put the Blackhawks over the salary cap, which is okay in my opinion. I love Hagel. I'm glad he got brought back after seeing Suter get let go. But, how in the world are we going to get ourselves back into acceptable salary caps? So my question for you guys is, this is going to have to happen via trade. So how do you guys think Chicago is going to shed some of this cap? Is it going to be just a small contract here or there, or is there going to be a big trade coming up? Jake, what's coming over to you?
So I think we really we look at that list of RFAs and UFAs that they have, and that's going to be tough. This year, they're only $2 million over. You can fix that with a couple small trades. Guys like Adam Gaudette, for whatever reason, Riley Stillman's making over $1 million. That makes no sense to me. Get rid of those guys, you're good for now. Long term, I'm not sure what you do, because that's a lot of contracts to sign.
Mm-hmm. So Jake, do you have any ideas as to, if you were in Stan Bowman's shoes, what would you be doing?
I think it really depends on what side of the bed this guy wakes up on.
Very true.
Honestly, you look at some of the big contracts, Kane is untouchable. Jonathan Toews, say he comes back, has a decent year. Do you think he's an untouchable, or do you think they could move Jonathan Toews?
Matt, I'll let you take this one first.
I don't know about that. I mean, for him to get moved, for one, he'd have to be playing. I mean, we definitely have to see him playing, because nobody's going to trade for him with that contract if he's not playing well, or if he's not playing at all. So that's going to be one thing we're going to have to see if he's ready to go. And another thing is, if you're going all in for a playoff push, is what it seems like the Hawks are doing, I think trading away your captain probably isn't the greatest thing to do. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows with Stan Bowman? I've talked to Dom before in the past. This guy's kind of crazy with some of the moves he's made, and Dom's already told us about what he's done this offseason. So we'll see, I guess. I wouldn't throw it out completely, as crazy as that sounds, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think. There's been fan favorites, Corey Crawford, Brandon Saad. He's not afraid to move guys.
That is true. Unfortunately, the truth. And Matt hit the nail on the head there, Stan. But we just don't know. You never know. So for me, personally, I think that would be out of the question. I don't think that that's the first thing you look at. I don't think that's the second, third, or fourth thing you look at. I think that's if, oh no, what are we going to do? Then that's something you might talk with Toews about, maybe even restructuring the contract, however that may work out. But I don't think you get rid of Jonathan Toews. I mean, if he's not able to play like he wants to, he'll probably call it a career, because if he can't get back to the playing hockey the way that he wants to, he's not the kind of guy that's going to sit there, and he's going to try to get better all the time. And if he knows when his time is up, I think he's going to know when his time is up. So I think he would retire or play out the rest of his contract before he gets traded. That's just my personal opinion. I think if you're Stan Bowman, you look at a guy like Calvin DeHaan, a guy who's like, okay, well, you bring in McCabe, you bring in Seth Jones, you bring in Caleb Jones, you have some other defensemen that have proven this. You have Connor Murphy. Where in the world is DeHaan going to fit in this? Get the $4.5 million off the books. Go get another draft pick like you did with Zadorov, and let's move on and be happy for the season. And if you need to do something else, if you still want DeHaan, Brent Connolly is an option. He's making $3.25 million, if I'm not mistaken. So that could clear up the cap space. What do you guys think about that?
I think for Connolly, you'd have to give up a draft pick if you're going to get rid of him.
Potentially.
It might ultimately come to that if you have to get the cap space. I think if they can't figure out how to get it good for this season, DeHaan's somebody that if they retain some salary, he's only got this year left on that contract.
Mm-hmm.
So he could be a deadline guy, somebody who wants some depth. I look at like David Savard got traded for a first-round pick.
That's true.
So the value of players just inflates rapidly when it comes to the deadline, and I think DeHaan fits the bill for that kind of trade.
True. Matt, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that. I really think it comes down to if you pretty much have to get it done because obviously you have to be under the salary cap before the season starts. But I think Brett Connolly makes sense. Like Jake, though, I said I think you'd have to give up a pick if you're even going to let that happen, because most people aren't going to be interested in that. Make it $3 million, and he's not even really going to be doing much for the Blackhawks, let alone some other team. So I don't know about that one, but yeah, I think Calvin DeHaan makes a lot of sense with how all the young up and coming defensemen on this backcourt. You're going to get them want to get them more ice time. And that kind of leaves, like you said, Calvin DeHaan, the odd man out. So, I don't know. I think he's definitely a guy who's on the chopping block. We'll see what the Hawks end up doing with this, but they got to get the salary cap under control.
Yeah, that's for sure. I would also say, too, some guys are saying that Strome is potentially the one that's going to go. But when you look at the forward depth, when you look at all of that stuff, in my opinion, I don't think getting rid of Strome is the best option. Otherwise, who's going to fill that role? And I think that, believe it or not, Chicago has that defensive depth now to make something happen. So
Let's also not forget that when Fleury, he's only on this 1-year deal. When his contract's up, that's $7 million you have to work with as well.
that is true. That's a good point. All right. So Chicago has done a lot this offseason. And with the current roster, I have to ask now, guys, as we do in every video, where do you guys think Chicago is going to end up in the standings this season? And then we'll move on to talk about who we think the most valuable player is going to be, which is going to be very interesting with the new additions that we've had. So, Matt, I want to come to you first. Where do you think Chicago finishes in the Central next season?
I think they're sitting at 4th place in the division. It's a pretty specific place. I think they will be a wild card. I think they're going to be fighting all year, and I think they're going to beat out some teams from the Pacific and some from their own division as well. I don't see them as a division winner because this Central Division is a knockout brawl every single season. And, of course, a team like Colorado is above there, so you got to worry about them. So I do think they're going to be fighting in the hunt. Would not be shocked if they got like a 3rd place as well. But I do think they're going to be a playoff team. I think with how it's set up, the weakness of the Pacific does help the Blackhawks. So, yeah, that's about where I think they're going to be sitting.
All right, Jake, what about you?
Yeah, I think one way or another the Blackhawks are going to be in the playoffs because I think both wild card spots are going to the Central because the Pacific is not good. And the Central is not as good as we've seen in the past, but they're not bad. I think the Avalanche are solid. They're locked in for the championship of the division, but the Blackhawks I see in 4th, just like Matt did. But I think the 2nd through 5th place is all going to be interchangeable.
Mm-hmm. I had them at number 5, but making that 2nd wild card spot for the Western Conference. Because like you guys said, the Pacific, I mean, it's not going to be all that great. The Kings are up and coming. Seattle's a new team that could do something. But other than that, it's pretty top-heavy over there. So I think, like you said, Jake, I think it's almost a safe bet that the Central will get that 4th and 5th wild card spot. So, yeah, I have Chicago at number 5. And, hey, I'm pretty excited about that. If they make the playoffs, that's what it's all about, especially as a fan. So, with that being said, MVP talk. Here we go, guys. Jake, I want to start with you because I'm interested to see what the St. Louis Blues fan has to say about the most valuable player for Chicago next season.
All right, so something that the Blackhawks lacked last season is goal scoring. They had a huge drop off after their leading guy, but then you have guys like Patrick Kane who normally have that role, and he switched to more of a passer. He had 51 assists last season, which is awesome. Patrick Kane is going to be a Hall of Famer, Blackhawks retired number, all that, but he's got to have somebody to pass to, and I think that guy is going to be their star. Alex Debrincat had 32 goals in 56 games this season. That's nothing to laugh at. That's solid numbers. And I don't see any reason why he wouldn't do the same next season. And I think he's going to be a star for the Blackhawks once again.
Yeah, and he actually missed a couple games due to COVID. So he didn't play the full 56. I think he missed either 3 or 4 games. I'd have to check that. But still, I mean, that just makes it even more impressive. 32 goals in a shortened season. Oh, yeah. Pretty impressive there. I like that pick. Matt, how about you?
I do like that pick. I think he definitely broke out last year. He already had a monster year 2 seasons before, and he just proved last season he's one of the top goal scorers in the league. I think that makes sense. But my top guy, and I think it makes way too much sense, Patrick Kane. I think he, by far, is the best player on this team. I think there's really no debate. I think arguably he's the best American in the league. That's just my opinion. Maybe a little biased one, but I think he is a great player. He's a guy who kind of took a back seat last year. Jonathan Toews was more of the passer type guy, known as in the lineup out of all the forwards. And when he went down at the beginning of the season, Patrick Kane kind of took it upon himself to become the primary distributor of the puck, and he really let Debrincat shine by kind of taking a backseat role. And as usual, whoever plays with Patrick Kane seems to have a really good year, and it wasn't a shock. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Patrick Kane again. I wouldn't be shocked if he's hunting towards 100 points again as we hit towards a full season. So, yeah, Patrick Kane.
All right. Matt, Jake, both of those guys are obviously the 2 studs of the Chicago Blackhawks right now. But Matt, I think like you said, Patty Kane does it over and over and over again and only seems to get better. So if he continues that pace, this season is going to be electrifying. So I'm going to lock in Patty Kane as the MVP for me. However, I just do also want to say that Fleury knows how to steal the show. He's done it multiple times. He did it in Vegas last season, winning the Vezina. So I'm just curious to see how well he's going to do for Chicago next year. He's obviously a Hall of Fame goaltender. Not saying he's going to be the most valuable player on the team, but you know for a fact that many of the wins in our win column next season will be because of Marc-Andre Fleury. All right. So, hey guys, we just talked a lot about what the Hawks have done this offseason because there was a lot that happened this offseason. Is there anything that we potentially have forgotten to mention?
I would like to mention a possible award winner from the Blackhawks for 2021-22.
Okay.
I think Alex Debrincat honestly has a shot at the Rocket. If they bring Toews back with a strong back end, he doesn't have to think so much like, okay, I'm going to have to hustle back after this. He can play a little more offense and add on to his already stellar offense. Debrincat for the Rocket Richard.
Wow. Matt, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I love to hear that from a St. Louis fan that he thinks that the Blackhawks going for the Rocket Richard, so that's pretty cool to hear. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to go a step further, and I think that with the type of talent that's in front of him, I wouldn't be shocked if Seth Jones is a Norris contender. With what he has to deal with next year, he's going to play a lot of minutes. He's going to be the guy, the number one guy there in Chicago. He's going to get paid a lot on his shoulders, and I think he's going to rise to the occasion. And I think it's really going to prove the Norris Trophy at this point has become pretty much, as a defenseman who can get the most points, has kind of really went away the way of a two-way guy, and more so who's one of the best offensive defensemen in the league, you're going to get the Norris. That's pretty much just how it's been for the last couple of years. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if with a guy like Patrick Kane and a guy like Debrincat and a guy like Toews in front of Seth Jones puts up a lot of points. I think he could definitely be in that conversation.
That is interesting. Jake, do you have any comments about that one?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I think depending on who they pair him with is going to be a big thing, because you can only be as good as your defensive partner. So if they get him a good partner, it could happen. If he gets stuck with somebody who's not so great, it might hurt his odds a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Jake, I will say, I think Debrincat really does have a shot at that Rocket Trophy. Something that Austin Matthews absolutely stole last year with the performance that he had last season. So it's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of good goal scorers in the league. Never count Ovi out. He's always scoring goals. That's what he's done his entire Hall of Fame career. So, man, that is going to be a bloodbath to see who gets that, especially with the regular season having the normal amount of games for the first time in a couple seasons, with one being cut short and one being scheduled for 56. So it's going to be very interesting. And Seth Jones, obviously, huge addition. And honestly, for a defender, he's entering his prime years. So opportunities are endless for him as well. All right, guys, anything else before we wrap up this video? All right, well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to Winnemac Hockey again. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button. We'd very much appreciate it. All right, guys, next time, we'll see you later on Winnemac Hockey.